Hello, you absolute legends. The madman is back. Todd Rogers, the video gamer who has faked more world records than almost anyone on the planet, has not yet learned when it's time to give up, go home, and move on with your life. He has taken a page out of his video gaming idol's playbook and has filed yet another lawsuit against Twin Galaxies and Guinness World Records, after his previous one ended up being a complete train wreck. This time, he's claiming damages of $1 million. Can someone explain to me why this particular group of people is so obsessed with lawsuits? And of all things to go to court over, why on earth does it have to be video game high scores? Everyone else in the entire world is pointing at these people and laughing at them because they are grown men in their 50s having a multi-year-long temper tantrum because their video game scores were exposed as being fake. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not one to point fingers at people and judge them for caring about video game scores. I love a high score just as much as the next guy. In fact, those who look closely might notice that I've made a career talking about video game scores. But to clog up the legal system with things of such a trivial nature requires a special kind of cognitive dysfunction. And this is not even to mention how morally wrong it is to put innocent people through a lawsuit because your own fake scores were revealed to be impossible. But despite the obvious injustice of these actions, and despite the massive public backlash, people like Todd Rogers continue to launch lawsuit after lawsuit over video game high scores. It really is a crazy world we live in, and Todd Rogers is a true pioneer, discovering brand new ways to look like an absolute douchebag. In this video, we will take a quick look at this new lawsuit, and honestly, it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I really hope you enjoy. Now, legends, on a serious note, the world records of Todd Rogers might be completely fake. Well, they are. But let's not let that distract us from the fact that Christmas is on the horizon. And today's sponsor, Ridge, is the perfect gift. You've almost certainly seen them before, but Ridge produce slim, aesthetically pleasing wallets that not only look good and feel good in your pocket, but these bad boys are made of some heavy-duty shit. Ridge are so confident in the quality of their wallets that they provide a lifetime warranty. Now, I want you to listen very carefully. You hear that? That's the sound of keys not jingling because they're in this really nice Ridge key case, which again, feels way better in your pocket than a bunch of keys on a keychain randomly stabbing your leg every time you move. Honestly, Ridge products are just cool, and they always have been. As I said before, Ridge really is the perfect Christmas gift. And if you use my custom link, which is in the description, you will receive 10% off. So click the link in the description and pick up one of these epic wallets today. Okay, so let's start with a mega quick recap. Todd Rogers claimed to have achieved thousands of video game world records, and was propped up and supported by a previously corrupt Twin Galaxies. Todd Rogers has never, and will never, provide any actual proof of any of his world records. There is not a single video that confirms any of his claims. Todd's most famous record was a 5.51 in Dragster, which he claimed to have achieved multiple times in 1982. And because the corrupt Twin Galaxies had a relationship with Guinness World Records, he managed to convince Guinness to give him an official record for the longest-lasting video game world record of all time. But in 2017, it was discovered that his dragster time is literally impossible, which has since been confirmed many times by many people. After this shed light on Rogers, many of his scores were ultimately found to be impossible, and his 40-year-long scam was exposed. Twin Galaxies, now under new management, banned Todd Rogers for life, and Guinness stripped Rogers of his records, and they published this decision in their 2019 Gamers Edition book. Rogers, being the idiot he is, sued Twin Galaxies and Guinness for defamation for saying his dragster score was impossible. The lawsuit was without merit and ended up being a complete disaster. I covered this in my video, Con Man Sues Guinness World Records and Gets Destroyed. When we left it, the lawsuit had been dismissed despite Todd's best efforts to keep it going. After that video, Todd didn't give up. He even hired a new lawyer on that old lawsuit trying to reopen it, but he just couldn't make progress and it remains closed to this day. So what does Todd do? Accept defeat and move on with his life? No, of course not. This is Todd Rogers we are talking about here, Mr. Activision himself. He's not just going to roll over and do the honorable thing, he wants to set a new world record, the biggest tool in video game history, and he's doing a damn fine job of achieving that goal. So with his lawsuit closed, he decides to make the genius move of starting up a new lawsuit, suing Twin Galaxies and Guinness World Records again for the exact same thing. Obviously, this is not allowed in the legal system. You can't just keep suing people for the same thing after you lose. But Todd has an IQ of 250, so he's going to skirt around this rule by calling it something else. Originally, he sued them for defamation, but this time, even though it is literally the exact same thing he is suing them over, he is calling it tortious interference. Tortious interference is where a party intentionally interferes with a contract or business relationship between two other parties. In order to be successful in a tortious interference complaint, you need to establish the following. A contractual business relationship existed between the plaintiff and another party. The defendant knew of the relationship. The defendant acted intentionally to disrupt the relationship. The defendant's actions were unjustified, and the plaintiff suffered damages as a direct result of the interference. So let's see how Rogers masterfully establishes all of these elements. Now mind you, I should probably acknowledge that Todd Rogers is not being represented by a lawyer in this new lawsuit. He is going solo. This is a one-man team. Not a great plan, but let's see how he does. The lawsuit is barely over 2 pages, so there isn't much meat here, and the first half is just establishing some facts we already know. Paragraph 9 is probably what the lawsuit is about, where it says that Guinness published an article saying that Twin Galaxies told them his dragster record was not technically possible. But I mean, I am translating here because this paragraph does not make sense. And when I say this is probably what the lawsuit is about, that's not because I don't understand how to read a legal document. Todd just doesn't explain anything. He says that this is an action for tortious interference, but doesn't explain how or why. The problem here is that Todd isn't a lawyer and has no idea what he is doing, and so he really doesn't know how to write this complaint properly. Granted, this entire lawsuit is bogus anyway, so even a real lawyer probably couldn't even explain how this is tortious interference either, but I suspect they would at least try. Todd's shortcomings as a lawyer become a lot more apparent in a moment. Todd says that he received monetary, and I think he was supposed to say monetary compensation, from the sale of his book. And due to the defendant's actions, he suffered harm to his reputation and earnings from the sale of his book. Now here is the incredible thing. Todd Rogers does not have a book. He has never published a book in his life, at least as far as I can tell. Me and a team of highly trained, crack investigators could find absolutely no trace of any book that Rogers has ever written or published. The book that Rogers is claiming that he lost sales on appears to be even more fake than his claimed video game high scores. The entire premise of this lawsuit is that he has a book, but it just does not exist. And if it does, it's literally impossible to find or buy, even if you wanted to. And my suspicion that this book has never existed is strengthened by the fact that Rogers doesn't even say what the book is called. He just says that he had a book. Todd says that the defendant knew of his existing contractual business relationships, including but not limited to the sale of his book. This seems to be where Todd really has no idea what he is talking about. In order to have a contractual relationship, you need a party to have a relationship with and a contract. Just saying that you are selling a book is not having a relationship with another party. I can write a book and sell it myself online. That doesn't mean anything. Todd never states who he had a contractual relationship with, and I don't think Todd even knows what that means. Todd seems to believe that just having a product to sell means that you have a business relationship. And you can't just say that Guinness and Twin Galaxies knew of his contractual business relationships and not explain how or why this is the case. Why should they have known? I am the biggest Todd Rogers fan on the planet. I literally have a life-sized Todd Rogers poster taped to my roof because I like the feeling of knowing that Todd is watching over me while I sleep. And I have never heard of this book. If anyone would know, it would be me. And even searching for the book, I can't find any evidence it ever existed. So if you want to claim that Guinness knew about it, you would need to have pretty good evidence as to how you came to that conclusion. Todd says the defendants should have known that he received benefits from his reputation as a Guinness World Record holder. But this lawsuit isn't about damage to reputation, which would be defamation. So this paragraph ends up being irrelevant. He claims that the defendant's reckless disregard to his reputation by publishing an article where plaintiff had his title unjustly removed interfered with his business relationships. For the record, his title was justly removed, and he doesn't even attempt to explain why it was unjust. But again, damage to his reputation is defamation, and not tortious interference, so this paragraph is also irrelevant. Furthermore, again, he doesn't state which relationships he had that were interfered with. Todd claims that he has a projected loss of earnings of around $964,842. This is probably the funniest thing in the entire lawsuit. Let's be super generous here and say that if Todgers did have a book, you know, one that actually existed, he could sell it for $10. In order to earn $960,000, he would have to sell 96,000 copies. I have tried to buy this book and I simply can't. The book is not sold anywhere. It cannot be located. No one has ever bought a copy. A copy of the book cannot be found or produced. This book does not exist. So why is he claiming that he would have sold 100,000 copies of a book that doesn't exist if only Twin Galaxies didn't remove his dragster score? This is a circus. The lawsuits keep getting more insane and more unhinged. What are they thinking? Can you believe that people like this were actually involved in the gaming community for decades, and people legitimately gave them attention and praise? It's really kind of disgusting that people like Todd Rogers, who are not only compulsive liars, but the kind of people who would use the legal system to attack innocent people and force them into an extremely stressful lawsuit, were given the time of day for so long. At this point, this is about far more than just video game high scores. As someone who is currently being sued, I cannot express how terrible the actions of these people are. They have no regard for anyone else. They have no humanity left. They have no place in our society, and soon, karma is going to come back around, and it's going to come around hard. Todd Rogers needs to find a large rock, place himself securely underneath, and not return until he can replicate his 5.51 on Dragster. Until then, thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.